This is CBC Vancouver News.
Beeline, CBC.
A possible bus strike across Metro Vancouver could be averted. Both sides have agreed to resume talks with the help of a veteran mediator.
We've seen 3 times as many cases of invasive disease in people under 20 years of age in this past year compared to the previous year.
BC sees a surge in cases of strep. 4 children have died in recent weeks. And tossed. A BC judge dismisses a lawsuit from a suspended lawyer over a deck divider. Good evening, I'm Dan Burritt. Thanks for joining us. A potential bus strike across Metro Vancouver next week could be averted if both sides can reach a deal at the bargaining table this weekend. The Coast Mountain Bus Company and QP Local 4500 say they've accepted an invitation from veteran mediator Vince Reddy to return to talks tomorrow. The union, which represents 180 transit supervisors, began job action with an overtime ban last week. It warned it would withdraw all services for 2 days starting Monday if a deal isn't reached. Unifor, the union for thousands of bus drivers and maintenance employees, told its membership to honor picket lines if there is a full strike by supervisors. Wages have been the main sticking point in the dispute. The previous collective agreement for transit supervisors ended in October of 2022. Firefighters in North Vancouver were busy at a blaze in Lower Lonsdale tonight. An apartment building caught fire at the corner of St. Andrews Avenue and 2nd Street. Neighbors who smelt the smoke say the building has been empty for the last several months, awaiting redevelopment. They say crews appeared to have it under control earlier tonight, though it did flare up at least once.
I go walking around here often, so yeah, it's been empty for a while, thankfully. I'm grateful for that. So,
the fire chief said no one was hurt, but had few other details. It was another sopping wet day for much of southwest BC. In the Fraser Valley, freezing rain brought a 3rd day of school closures and weather warnings. But as our Michelle Morton reports, many were ready to wade through the slush and wait out the cold snap.
Rain is turning snow and ice into slush, as well as pooling water on roads in the Fraser Valley. After 2 snow days, some school districts in the Lower Mainland reopened classes Friday, except schools across the Fraser Valley because of weather and road conditions. A 3rd day off caught some parents by surprise.
This is like normal day, nothing, really. It's very safe. I don't think so, it's necessary.
In Maple Ridge, this mom says she planned ahead.
I think it's good communication. I don't have a problem, and we are especially prepared, and I need to talk to my employer, so it's going to be snow, so probably be ready that I'm not coming to work. I'm so sorry for that, but the school is closed. I have no choice. Only if we are okay to bring my son to work, fine.
Drive BC posted travel advisories earlier in the day, warning drivers traveling on Highway 1 to watch for rapidly deteriorating road conditions and saying there could be closures because of snow and freezing rain in some areas. The Transportation Ministry said maintenance workers had been preparing.
The first day of snow day, obviously, it was pretty standstill on the road, so we closed actually at 3 o'clock that day. But yesterday, now today is back at it to normal.
It appears to be business as usual, with ice and snow melting on the sidewalks and mostly just wet roads.
As long as it doesn't flood the roads, I think it'll be fine. But this time of year, in the January, February, we get the recreational skater coming in too, and it just brings the mood out. Everyone wants to do the outside activities, and as long as they can get to the rinks or so forth, it'll be a good time for them.
Some freezing rain warnings for the Fraser Valley lifted by noon, but warnings east of Abbotsford remain through the night. Nobody from the city was available for an interview, but says in a statement crews are out clearing the snow and addressing pooling water on the roads, as well as keeping an eye on weather conditions across the community. The city is asking drivers to use caution and to make sure their vehicles are winter ready. Michelle Morton, CBC News, Abbotsford.
So we've now gotten through our 3rd day of stormy winter weather around BC. Commuters once again faced long waits for buses and dangerous roads because of black ice and pooling water. After this week's epic snow dump, councillors in New Westminster and Surrey are again renewing their call to the region and province to have a snow summit to better coordinate storm response.
Snowstorms don't know municipal boundaries. They hit the entire region at the same time. So I think it only makes sense, the Snow Summit, to bring the experts together, to bring the ICBC, TransLink, some of the road engineers, some experts, to talk about how we can deal with these better.
Fontaine says the lack of a coordinated response means a lot of people stay home from work and lose money. That's having a negative impact on the provincial economy. RCMP and Dawson Creek have renewed their call for your help in the case of a missing man. It's the latest in a series of missing persons cases and violent crimes. Take a look. 24-year-old Cole Hossack, who is white, was last seen January 1st in the Peace region, town 400 kilometers northeast of Prince George. 3 other people went missing throughout last year. David Daniel Domingo, a 24-year-old Filipino man, as well as Daryl Lynn Supernant, a 29-year-old Cree woman, and her 41-year-old cousin, Renee Didier. RCMP says none of the cases appear to be connected. Police also say at least 4 killings have occurred since last year, but it's unclear if any of the people who vanished have met with foul play. We're tracking a spike in child deaths in Canada, all linked to an aggressive form of strep. There have been 4 deaths in this province in recent weeks. As Michelle Gassoub explains, doctors are warning parents to watch for the symptoms that signal more than just a common cold.
Cases of Strep A are up across Canada, including here in BC. The aggressive bacterial infection can be deadly, especially among the very old and the very young.
We've seen 3 times as many cases of invasive disease in people under 20 years of age in this past year compared to the previous year. So it's a tripling of case counts in that age group.
Strep A infections occur when the bacteria that causes strep spreads to sterile parts of the body, like the bloodstream and the brain. Data from the BC Centre for Disease Control shows it has killed 4 children in BC since mid-December.
In British Columbia, a component of our cases that's on the upswing is one particular type called EMM1, which is associated with higher rates of severity and higher rates of mortality.
The deaths occurred all across the province. Cases in BC have been rising steadily since 2016, with 547 reported in 2023. The Public Health Agency of Canada confirmed 4,600 cases nationwide last year. That's a 40% increase from the previous high in 2019, likely caused as exposure increased after the pandemic. One of the challenges with Strep A is telling the difference between less serious illnesses and a bacterial infection that can turn deadly.
When people should be worried is if in children, let's say, the fever is high and doesn't respond to acetaminophen, they get increasingly short of breath, especially if the illness is progressing more rapidly. They get lethargic, they aren't eating. Those are situations where consultation with a healthcare provider on an urgent basis is probably warranted.
There's no vaccine against Strep A, but because it often piggybacks off of other less serious infections, staying up to date with COVID and flu vaccines can help you stay safe. Michelle Gassoub, CBC News, Vancouver.
Parks Canada says whirling disease has now been detected in BC for the first time. That disease is a microscopic parasite that affects trout and salmon and is not treatable. Parks Canada says it was found in Yoho National Park. Symptoms include deformities and fish swimming in a whirling pattern. The public can report any suspected sightings online. The SPCA has seized 7 dogs from a property in the Okanagan during freezing conditions. The agency says someone called them concerned about these animals. When they got to the property, the dogs were found in outdoor pens only covered by a few tarps. There were several 5-month-old puppies, 2 poodles, an Australian shepherd, as well as a Cocker Spaniel. They're all now being cared for in animal centres in the Okanagan and, if you want to, available for adoption in about a week or 2. The BC Supreme Court has dismissed a lawsuit filed by a suspended Vancouver lawyer against her neighbour over a deck divider. A judge called the lawsuit frivolous and an abusive process. Our Bethany Lindsay has been following this lawsuit very closely. Bethany, walk us through this case and this decision.
Yeah, this is one of the strangest stories that I've ever covered. It begins with a lawyer named Naomi Arbabi. Now, Arbabi claimed a privacy divider on her neighbor's deck was blocking her view, but her lawsuit was written in a really unusual way. Arbabi claimed she was using the, quote, law of the land and not any sort of written legal statutes. And she said she planned to try the case in the, quote, Naomi Arbabi court. Now, the neighbor applied to have the case dismissed. She said it looked like the kind of pseudo-legal claim that sovereign citizens use. An associate judge agrees. She's tossed the lawsuit out today, calling it frivolous and vexatious. The judge says it bears many of the hallmarks of an organized pseudo-legal commercial argument, or OPCA, which are used to disrupt the court and frustrate people's legal rights.
Bethany, what does this mean for Arbabi's career as a lawyer?
Yeah, that's a really good question. The experts I've spoken with say they've never seen a lawyer file a claim like this. The associate judge says Arbabi violated her professional oath as a lawyer. The court has ruled she'll have to pay special costs for filing a frivolous claim. Now, we also know that the Law Society suspended her license last month. They said it was an extraordinary action to protect the public while they investigate. And there's no news yet on that process. I should say I also reached out to Naomi Arbabi for comment, but I haven't heard anything back, Dan.
All right, Bethany Lindsay reporting, and you can read much more on this story by Bethany on our website, cbc.ca/BC. Thanks, Bethany. Opposing sides of a Quesnel First Nation leadership battle went head-to-head in a federal court today. A group of band members voted to oust their hereditary chief just about a year ago. But as John Hernandez explains, the long-standing leader says the vote was illegitimate and that she remains in power.
Making the cold trek from the Fraser Valley, members of the Quesnel First Nation came hoping for clarity.
My hopes are that good things will happen today.
Band members funneled into a federal court which will soon decide the fate of their nation's leadership. In November 2022, a group of Quesnel First Nation residents held an assembly at this church where they voted to remove their long-standing hereditary chief and elect 3 new councillors.
We have a hereditary system, but that hereditary system has limits. There's no one supreme leader who can be installed for life without checks or balances or without being held accountable when they've caused harm.
Organizers had opposed Quesnel's chief Marilyn Gabriel for years, accusing her of poor leadership and political repression.
This leader in question has also outlawed any meetings of any kind by band members to hold on their to hold independently, which is not part of our custom.
But the Quesnel chief maintains the vote didn't count. In a sworn affidavit, Chief Marilyn Gabriel said there is no custom of the Quesnel First Nation for members to call meetings at which fundamental changes may be made to the governance of our nation. She says the assembly was an ad hoc meeting organized with less than a week's notice, and that only a couple dozen people attended, including many non-members. Organizers claim about 2/3 of the 68 on-reserve residents were there.
We believe that was more than sufficient, a much higher turnout than assemblies that occur in other communities for these types of decision-making.
Marilyn Gabriel and her team declined to comment to CBC News. Supporters of the new regime hold out hope it remains.
We need more equality and we need more fairness within the nation itself.
They're for our people, for our community, and because we were always left out.
For 2 days, a federal judge has heard arguments from both sides. Now he'll try to determine whether there was broad consensus across the entire nation to remove the chief. His decision is expected to come down next month. John Hernandez, CBC News, Vancouver.
A new K-6 French elementary school is coming to North Burnaby. The province says it anticipates construction will begin on the former Duthie Union Elementary School land next summer. The Education Ministry says it approved almost $41 million for a 3-story building that will house up to 360 students. It will include a neighborhood learning center for childcare and community use. The province hopes to have it open in the fall of 2027. After the break, as some childcare gets less expensive in BC, some parents are finding it even harder to get a spot. Their challenges are next. And hello to everyone watching our commercial-free live stream. A hockey lover from Ireland who currently lives in Manchester posted online that her boyfriend gifted her a trip to Vancouver for Christmas. Why, you ask? Because she's a huge fan of the Canucks, even though she's never been to this city before. The couple are in town, and we caught up with them on the coast.
So, AJ, they won last night. How was your first in-person game?
So warm-ups happened and I cried again. It felt like coming home, as silly as that sounds. Like, I've only ever seen the guys on a computer screen or a TV screen. And it was like, I'm not on a computer. Like, this isn't a computer. Like, this isn't a TV. Like, I am here. They are in touching distance. Like, if I jump this plexi, I am on Rogers ice. Like, it was more just like, I'm here. Seeing the speed in person, the plays, the ability of the players from both teams. But I will say to all the Vancouver Canucks fans that it should have been a 3-1 victory.
Oh. And you guys did get an arena tour before. So what was that like? I've never even had an arena tour. I've lived here my whole life.
So the contact that Jake knows was like just come in. We'll take you around. Walked in and there was like players playing 2-touch and I like kept my head down the whole time. It was like, because if I recognize any of these guys, my mind's gonna explode. So we got taken through and shown like some of the hospitality and stuff, like the president's suite and stuff, because that's where we're sitting on Monday. And walking up the steps, if you've seen the video on my Twitter, anyone that's listening that has me on Twitter, I literally got up the stairs and just stopped, like the slowest walk. My jaw dropped. I was like, this is Rogers. Like, this is Rogers. There's the video of me. I am in awe. I'm just, my mouth's on the floor. I'm staring at like the Jumbotron and I'm like, this is it. This is home. Like, this is home.
Oh. I love that. And I did see your videos when we were looking at them yesterday and just like, yes, this is home. I'm here.
Yeah.
What was it like, Jake, for you, again, to see her response? And what was it like for you, too?
Yeah, honestly, though, it's just been amazing. Again, the reactions are absolutely wonderful to see. It's not why I did it. I didn't do it for... to sort of, I'll do this so that I get to see these kind of reactions.
What a bonus!
Yeah, obviously it's nice to be able to give her this kind of experience and make her this happy kind of thing. Less so because I then have to put my faith in a sports team to be like, please don't lose the game, right?
And it's the Canucks.
We've gone to all this
I think you're well aware.
Please.
Many people do cry over the Canucks. It's not usually
normally it isn't happy tears. I'm
joy.
crying over the Canucks. It's usually 4 o'clock in the morning. I'm sleep deprived and we've just blew a 3-0 lead. And I'm like, why am I awake?
When it comes to childcare in BC, some parents may be saving hundreds of dollars with governments funding more affordable spaces. But with lower prices, some say it's getting even harder to find a space. As Benit Breach explains, some parents and guardians are waiting years, while some daycares have closed their waiting lists.
This mom was just 3 months pregnant when she began looking for childcare for her son. Almost 2 years later, she's still waiting.
I would say it's a nightmare for me.
Her name placed on 7 waiting lists for different childcares in Chilliwack.
I have declined almost 4 job offers in last 3 months in the hope that I will find a daycare here, but I haven't found anything here. And I have to stay home. I have no choice.
This single mom can relate. Her maternity leave is nearing its end, and she's been waiting 7 months for a spot.
Overwhelmed and just crippling. It's not knowing what I'm going to be able to do. I don't have a choice. I need to go to work and no one can guarantee me a spot at all, and all are telling me that they're not even looking to be empty until 2025. Yeah.
The waits, uncertainty, and frustration are a reality parents like them are facing across BC and Canada, especially as childcare becomes more affordable.
Programs like 10 a day and the Child Care Fee Reduction Initiative are among the ways BC and the federal government have been cutting hundreds of dollars for parents. But with that demand, it's getting harder to find a spot.
I describe it as the ongoing struggle, but at the same time, I'm incredibly optimistic because at least we've got the government commitment to do it.
But with increased funding comes a surge in demand.
For up until now, because parent fees have been so high, many families didn't even bother putting their names on waiting lists.
A new report by Statistics Canada shows in 2023, the average amount parents paid for their main full-time arrangement decreased to $544 per month from $649. But the number of parents who say it's been difficult to get childcare increased from 53% to 62%. Since this childcare began providing 10-a-day care in 2022, interest has soared to the point they've now had to close wait lists.
Very frustrating. We've had parents in tears calling, but we didn't want to give the parents false hope because there is zero chance of them getting in.
Here, some parents are waiting 3 years for a spot. She says about 200 families have inquired about 10-a-day care and have not gotten onto their programs. And she says while there has been progress, more government funding is needed to help childcare providers like her open up new spaces and hire more staff.
If daycares can't find the spaces and if daycares can't staff the spaces, all that money is not going to do any good.
The province says thousands of spaces are coming. One effort is the New Spaces Fund. Governments to schools can get funding to open childcares with reduced fees. It also says the province will fund about 15,000 new 10-a-day spaces by the spring of this year. That's an increase of about 2,200 spaces over last year. Overall, there have been more than 33,000 new licensed childcare spaces funded since 2018, and now more than 15,000 of these spaces are open. And it is working to better support early childhood educators, such as higher wages and help with education costs. Advocates acknowledge that there has been big strides, but say there's still a long way to go.
75% of children ages 0 to 12 still don't have access to a licensed childcare space. Childcare is now visible in a way that it has not been before for the general public. It isn't just for the lucky few.
And parents like Aurora are still keeping their fingers crossed for a spot, even after months and months of waiting. Benit Brach, CBC News, Vancouver.
There's a live shot of downtown Vancouver looking pretty wet over the next few days on the south coast after that bout of snow and slush. Riley Lachuk will have your BC-wide forecast right after this.
Let us touch on your thesis. Why did you decide to write about Vancouver's history with snow?
Yeah, so I was always interested in looking at snow or a winter-related topic for my PhD, and I started the PhD before the COVID-19 pandemic, so my ideas were maybe focusing on a provincial-wide element or nationally. And I was living in Vancouver when the pandemic hit, and with restrictions in place at that time, it really had to become a Vancouver focus. And to be honest, I was really glad that it did become one. I lived in Vancouver for about 6 or 7 years, and I'd gone there a lot as a kid. We have family out on the coast, and I'd seen snow on the coast a number of times and loved going into the mountains to enjoy the snow. So it really ended up being a great fit, one that was kind of forced by the pandemic, but I'm really glad that I was able to focus on the topic.
Oh, lovely. And how would you define Vancouver's relationship with snow after going through all your research?
Yeah, it's one where we see, you talked about attitudes at the very start there. I think it's a very complicated relationship that the city and residents in Metro Vancouver as a whole have with snow. As I look at in my dissertation, it snowed in Vancouver. I looked between the 1850s and the 2000s primarily, and when you look at present day Vancouver and the southern coast, it has snowed there almost every winter since the 1850s. There are more winters with snow than without snow, but attitudes have generally remained the same. When the city of Vancouver incorporated in 1886, civic boosters and large corporations promoted Vancouver's mild, temperate, often rainy winters, and really downplayed the idea that snow was on the coast. They redefined it as something that was unnatural, uncharacteristic, something that happened in the rest of Canada, but not in Vancouver. Selling the mildness of the coastal winters was really a key selling point. And it was something for folks coming from other parts of Canada or other parts of the continent. Vancouver does, in fact, seem less snowy. When it does snow in Vancouver, it often doesn't last very long. It's often very short-lived, but it does snow every year. And that really influenced, it became a very sticky idea, I should say. It's stayed around throughout Vancouver's history. In my dissertation, I call it the evergreen mentality. The idea that snow is Vancouver's a place devoid of snow, when in fact it is part of the coast's climate, albeit not as much as the rest of Canada.
And yet every year, and I'm somebody that has grown up, born and raised on the coast, and I'm always still surprised when it snows a lot. But I also, I suppose many of us use it as an excuse as to why perhaps we don't know how to drive in it properly, or we don't have the correct outerwear. Have our attitudes towards snow changed at all, or are we still stuck in that, as you said, that evergreen mentality?
I'd say yes. I think Vancouverites are still stuck in that mentality.
Hi, I'm Amy Bell, and here's what's in your CBC Vancouver inbox.
On January 24th, join CBC British Columbia's Matt Allen as host of a special screening of an episode from CBC's Black Life Untold Stories, an 8-part docuseries that reframes the rich and complex histories of Black experiences in Canada. Presented in partnership with the Black Life Impact Foundation, the event features a screening of one episode and a Q&A session. Tickets at cbc.ca/BC.
The weather update is brought to you by Direct Buy Furnace. To cool and clean the air in your home, call Direct Buy Furnace. Installing Trane, the most reliable heating and cooling brand.
Time for our BC-wide weather forecast with Riley Lachuk after one of those weather weeks. Riley, what do we get this weekend?
Yeah, well, one of those weeks. That's a really good way to sum it up, Dan. We are looking at, predominantly cloudy for Metro Vancouver tomorrow, but we will see some more rain as we get into the later part of the weekend. Quick look at your afternoon highs this afternoon, 2 degrees in both Vancouver and Victoria. You can see this pocket of warm air here. Warm air aloft, that was really what was driving some of that freezing rain through the Fraser Valley today. Into northern BC, we did have snowfall warnings in place for Prince George up through Smithers. Minus 25 in Fort Nelson this afternoon. So looking at the weekend forecast, you can see as we start the day on Saturday, a mainly cloudy sky for much of southern British Columbia. The interior, Kamloops up through Williams Lake, Prince George, still looking at some snow through the day tomorrow, tapering off to flurries. But we'll see here as we get into Sunday, you can see another band of precipitation starts to move in, some snow in the higher elevations, mainly a rain event though for the south coast and for Metro Vancouver. And that continues as we get into the later part of Sunday and into early Monday morning, so not quite done with the rain yet. As for snow, looking at some of the projected numbers here, Prince George, another 23 centimeters to come. I think that is a little bit high. According to this forecast model, it's a bit high on the high side. I think up to 15 centimeters generally through the Prince George region towards Smithers as well. For rainfall through the south coast and Vancouver Island, not a lot coming tomorrow. Trace, if that, but if we look into Sunday, you can see another 10 to 15 millimeters generally along the island and into the south coast of British Columbia. So your forecast for the overnight looks like this. We do have some snow continuing to fall through the interior, Kelowna and Kamloops. Chance of some showers continuing through the south coast and snow for parts of northern British Columbia. Tapering off to flurries through the day tomorrow, -7 in Prince George. Chance of some showers through the Vancouver, Victoria region. Soyuz could even see some lingering flurries through Kelowna as we get through the day tomorrow. Looking at the 7-day forecast, doesn't look a lot different than this, unfortunately. We just have a lot of cloud and a lot of rain on the way, and a fairly good chance of that rain continuing into the next week, Dan.
Well, not a lot of change in those graphics, eh?
Yeah.
Riley Lachuk.
No, not at all.
Thanks very much.
Have a great weekend.
That is your late news for Friday. Thank you for joining us tonight and all this long week. For news anytime, check our website, cbc.ca/BC. Your next local news is tomorrow morning at 6:30 on CBC Radio 1. And Tanya Fletcher will have your late news tomorrow night at 10:30 right after hockey. Good night. Enjoy the weekend. Stay safe.